Welcome to Opinion Central. I'm JohnDiaz, the editorial page editor for the San Francisco Chronicle. With me this afternoon is Amy Farrow-Weiss, a candidate for mayor in the June 5th election. Welcome. Appreciate you coming. We just had an editorial board with Amy, and we talked about a number of issues, but there was one that was really your main focus, and that is housing. Give us a sense. Voters want to know what solutions you have to this enormous housing crisis in San Francisco.
Right. Well, first off, I want to direct people to go to weissformayor.com, where they can see these outcomes and initiatives that I've developed, and they can actually add to shaping what I've developed as a framework for how we can judge the performance of the next mayor. I'm calling it an outcomes tracker. And so I have created 12 different categories, and at the top is actually addressing the encampment and shelter shortage crisis. So that's something that really is a top issue for me, is stabilizing that encampment and shelter shortage crisis, which is also a public health and safety crisis. And then I have next on that outcomes tracker focusing on affordable housing development and anti-displacement. And so one of the things that I'm really pushing for right now is that if we do any upzoning, we need to figure out a new path of financing so that we can afford to work with developers and say we can get 50% affordable in new developments that are upzoned by creating these financing mechanisms of 0 to low percent loans, which is something that the city already does with the small sites program, where we acquire housing that is on the market and at threat of displacement for the tenants. And we actually invest in these loans so we can purchase these buildings, and they're 0 to low percent. So over time, it's paid back. It's not just a tax credit. Because currently we have two pathways that are used for financing affordable housing development. One of them is market rate development, where we have inclusionary, and Mark Leno and Hack were the people that really pushed forward that idea about a decade ago, so that when we have a new housing development, we say there has to be up to 15-19% inclusionary. Then there is a path where we get federal tax credits that pay for affordable housing development, but it's only for very low income housing. And so what we need to do is create this third path for financing, where we're working with developers so that, and we're also working with pension funds, and we're getting financing so that we can make sure that these pencil out and that we can streamline the projects that are affordable housing development projects with 50% affordable. So no other candidate is saying right now that 50% affordable in upzoning is possible, and that's because we need to create new financing mechanisms. We could do that with a state bank, and that's something that I hope that maybe our next governor is Delane Easton, and our next lieutenant governor is Gail McLaughlin, because we need to have a state bank or a way to loan out money and use the surplus we have at the state level and capture money from corporations that went from 35% tax rate to 21% tax rate, and put that money into developing our cities in San Francisco, in California. So that public bank is something that we can aim for as part of this financing mechanism, as well as working with pension funds. San Francisco has $500 million that is currently invested in fossil fuels that we've been focusing on trying to divest from, and we can work with SFers and the pension fund to be able to invest in this affordable housing.
Well, let me ask you, if this kind of investment is so good for people who are financing it, why aren't the conventional banks doing it? Why does the city need to get involved if it really would be a better investment than, say, fossil fuels?
Oh, well, currently the big banks want to have a huge return on investment when they invest in housing. And so if you look at our housing goals for low income, mid income, and market rate, you'll see that San Francisco is something like 200%. We've fulfilled our goals for market rate development, and the market is not going to develop the housing that we need for our workforce and families. And so we have to guide that financing. And currently, the banks and the developers are saying it doesn't pencil out for us to do 50% affordable. No worries. What we will do is partner with these developers and these financial institutions and say that the government will actually fund the affordable housing aspect of it, but with loans that we get paid back. So it's not a tax credit where we're giving money away to developers. We're actually financing it with 0 to low % financing. So this all works out. And if we don't take the reins and require that affordable development in upzoning, we're not going to get the relief that we need for this affordable housing crisis.
One of the things, Amy, we hear time and again from developers about the cost of doing business in San Francisco is it's not just about them trying to optimize profit, but also concerns about delays and the uncertainty and the regulatory process. You mentioned streamlining. What would that look like for development?
So currently we have 45,000 plus units that are already entitled in San Francisco. And so this next mayor, instead of saying, I'm going to create all these new projects for development, they should really be focused on streamlining these efforts. And currently the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development already has a task force that's focused working with affordable housing developers and developers on how do we do this? How do we get these permits going out faster? And so it's really important that if we're going to focus on streamlining, that we streamline the right projects first, which could be focusing on the affordable housing development projects. And so we want to take the risk away when we're investing public money or pension funds into development. And that's how we could do that, is that we could focus on streamlining the projects that are affordable housing development projects up to 50%.
For those of you who are watching this, if you have a question for Amy Farrow-Weiss or a comment, my colleague Spencer Whitney is monitoring the Facebook comments. So if you just put it in the comments section, we can maybe get one of your questions in. Let me ask you, Amy, you mentioned during the meeting with our editorial board, noted that the at least 4 of those who you are running against are current office holders. Is there some value to having experience in the political process? Or, I mean, how would a voter who's looking at somebody who has not been on the Board of Supervisors or in the state legislature, how would you fare in what can be a pretty rough political environment in San Francisco?
Well, as I was mentioning to you in that discussion, I became activated in local politics in 2011. It was after the global financial collapse, and Ed Lee's planning department was rolling out the red carpet for a Chase Bank to displace 3 local businesses in my Divisadero neighborhood, collapse these 3 storefronts into one Chase Bank. And so I made this connection between the national and the local in terms of politics. And I've been working to shape policy from the outside of City Hall and in the inside. I've been invited to be on working groups before and have been in offices and come to City Hall to speak at public comment at the Planning Commission and at the Board of Supervisors. So I have a track record that people can look up at weissformayor.com. You can also go to YouTube and see this collection of video that I am on record asking for common sense solutions for Airbnb. I am on record fighting against corporate giveaways. I am on record fighting for affordable housing development. So I do have a track record. It's just that I've been outside City Hall doing the work, rolling up my sleeves to figure out the policies and to help shape them. And then the last 2.5 years, I've been focused on working with encampment residents, impacted neighbors, and all the different departments. So I'm a much better candidate than I was even 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I ran against Ed Lee, because I took those ideas, and especially the ones about stabilizing our encampment crisis, and I developed and piloted them and did the work with encampment residents and the department heads. So I've worked with the direct service workers at DPW that are on the streets and the police officers and the hot team workers. I work with them. They're all frustrated as well with the directives that are coming from City Hall. And then I go and meet with Mohammed Nuru of DPW and try to meet with Barbara Garcia of the Department of Public Health. but that got blocked by someone inside of City Hall who didn't want me to meet with her. I've met with Jeff Kaczynski at City Hall, who's the head of the Department of Homelessness, and I continue to try to work together with all of these people with an outcomes over egos approach to say, here is the analysis that I've done. Here are the programs that we should be investing in to address this at the root and heal this crisis at the root. But City Hall is not paying attention. And I met with Jane Kim's aide about a year ago, and she said she was going to pick up 2 of the proposals I was putting forward around encampments, how we could stabilize this public health crisis. I've been trying to meet with London Breed. I met with Mark Leno. I met with Angela Alioto. I've tried to work with all of these fellow candidates, and I will continue to try to work with them. But they were all blocked by the Lee administration from doing the work that needed to be done on the streets. And so if any of these candidates had shown me that they were committed to stabilizing this crisis in a strategic, cost-effective, and community-integrated way, I would have thrown my lot in with them. But I was forced to run, actually, because none of them would at this point. But that doesn't mean that they can't change their mind right now. We don't have to wait till June. I want everybody to understand this. We don't have to wait till June to do some of these amazing things that people are proposing. Right now, Mark Farrell and London Breed and Jane Kim could work with me on the encampment stabilization work. Right now, Mark Leno could work with Mark Farrell on activating those vacant SRO units. We can do this work together, which is something that I'm promoting. Whoever becomes mayor in this next year and a half that they have a term, we have an opportunity to work together as a team on our different areas of passion and expertise to really serve the city, which is what the leader of San Francisco should be doing.
You mentioned that during the meeting, and I was struck thinking about just San Francisco politics and the way it works. And in all likelihood, not to be cynical or skeptical, but being realistic, that a lot of times we have the situation where whoever wins in June, the other candidates, at least a couple of them, are going to start positioning themselves for 2019 and maybe looking for ways to find fault with the incumbent mayor. How do you change that dynamic of San Francisco politics?
Well, you ask for something different, first of all, and you ask all the candidates to pledge to work together no matter who wins in June. And the other thing that I really want to stress is if you go to weissformayor.com, like I said, there's an outcomes tracker that I've developed. And I would love to partner with the SF Chronicle and the San Francisco Democratic Party, the DCCC, unions, and different Democratic clubs and organizations where we create this framework so that whoever becomes mayor in June, we're tracking their progress on these deliverables over the next year. And currently I have 12 categories and I have about 43 different outcomes that we would track. And so together we can show progress over this year. And what I'm asking is for your readers and viewers to go to weissformayor.com and actually review that outcomes tracker and help shape it, because it's an iterative document. We want to build it together and then share it. And 2 of my supporters have been helping me. We're translating it into Chinese and into Spanish. So that'll be available in April so that we can get a broader participant rate.
Quick final question, because during the meeting you asked a question that few candidates are willing to answer, and that's with ranked choice voting in San Francisco. Your button says vote 1, 2, 3. Most candidates will say, well, vote for me, and then won't give the second and third choice. You've got your ranked choice voting. What do you want your voters to do?
I do. And we revolutionized ranked choice voting and democracy in the 2015 race with myself, Francisco Herrera, and Stuart Shuffman joining forces. And we got almost 35% of the vote, even though publications like the Chronicle pretty much ignored us. But there was a movement. And so that was that ranked choice voting of the 3 of us. And now I'm promoting vote 1, 2, 3 for equity. And that's myself, Jane Kim, and Mark Leno. I also want to work with Angela Alioto and London Breed and look forward to that opportunity. No matter what happens, I think we should all be working together. But currently my vote 1, 2, 3 slate is Weiss, Kim, and Leno.
Great. Well, Amy Farrell-Weiss, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching on Opinion Central. I'm John Diaz, the editorial page editor, wishing you a good afternoon.